So, how many of you have seen the hit anime TV show Nisemonogatari? The third installment in the Monogatari series, if you're going by the novel order, Nisemonogatari largely focuses on the two sisters of the main boy, Araragi. It gets into how strong the sibling bond between the three of them is, and the various tests put on them to maintain and grow that connection. Okay, look, that may not be exactly what happens in the story. I'm pretty sure it's more about some middle-aged dude scamming middle schoolers, but that's not the focus of today. I bring up Nisemonogatari because there is a scene where the main boy Araragi brushes his little sister's teeth. Now, if by some stretch of the imagination you haven't seen Nisemonogatari, or at the very least, the clip associated with this scene, you might think that sounds a little weird, but let me assure you, the animation absolutely supports that notion. Truly a wise use of the budget, Mr. Studio Shaft. Thank you. But for real, brushing your teeth is one of those things that you do every day without thinking about it. To have someone else take the reins is strangely sensual, at least as it's described in the show. More vulgar than kissing was a line I think was used. Again, this is an act the main character does with his sister. Monogatari is a show that loves playing with taboo concepts, to put it mildly. It having this teeth-brushing scene is ultimately just another notch in the belt of the problematic subject matter the series plays with. I'm not going to get into it here, I've uploaded a whole separate video about the subject, but at the end of the day, Monogatari is just a work of fiction. None of it's real, so it playing with such risque concepts is fine, in my book. How it explores those things, it plays into the morbid curiosity inherent in all of us. The aforementioned sibling teeth-brushing scene, as weirdly sensual as it may get, is a far abstraction from the real thing happening between a real pair of siblings. If such a thing did ever happen IRL, the ramifications of the act would surely take up multiple green texts told over a number of years, with people debating the grossness of such an act and where the boundaries between family and lovers really stands. Stay with me. That's what was debated in the comments of the story. Late 2000s, early 2010s was a wild time. I'm just an impartial arbiter here to share this tale with you, because no one else will. I just so happen to be from the South, okay? Oral hygiene, brother. The tale no one on YouTube seems to want to cover, either because they don't know about it, the subject matter simply disgusts them too much, or they fear demonetization. I'm gonna try to skirt that last one myself, apologies for the weird censorship that is bound to occur, but as for the other two, I find this tale morbidly fascinating, and that more people don't know about it is a crime, much like some of the acts in the story. Truth be told, when it comes to strange tales woven in the dark corners of the internet, this is the one I come back to the most. If it's a work of fiction, the details are so chillingly real that it's legitimately a work of art. If it's all real, then the subject matter is so taboo you can't help but stare in fascination. Kinda like a train crash, the whole story feels like it's playing out in slow motion, and it just keeps going and going and going until it ends. I'm gonna read the whole thing for this video, maybe stopping here and there to give my thoughts or read some of the archived comments. If you found the earlier anecdote about Nisemonogatari objectionable, this is a forewarning. This story gets into way more details you might not be kosher with. I know this is a little out of my wheelhouse. I normally cover visual novels on this channel, but they say you should be the change you want to see in the world, and that no videos exist about this tale yet is a tragedy to me. Also, it's not really super out of my wheelhouse if you think about it. I mean, in the last video uploaded on this channel, I did indeed say that I'm kinda like a Fujoshi, but for incest, and I intend to live that title up. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you prefer this to be a one-off, or if you'd like more stuff like this in the future. Anywho, let's get into what happens when an OP from many moons ago recreates a scene from Nisemonogatari with his very own little sister. Saturday, October 3rd, 2009. I have a tale for you, A few days ago, a thread was posted suggesting A brush his sister's teeth. After some consideration, I offered and eventually did brush my younger sister's teeth for her. I thought it was fun, and she didn't seem to dislike it, though she also didn't think much of my technique. That's the backstory. Here's the main event. Tonight, my sister interrupted my browsing 4chan to ask about my day. Very thoughtful on her part, but not unusual. As we talked, she mentioned that she was going to get ready for bed soon. I thought nothing of it. It wasn't until she repeated that she was going to brush her teeth and started slowly slinking out of the room that I picked up on what she wanted. At that point, I asked if she wanted a hand with that, and she quickly accepted. I went with her to brush her teeth again. Tonight's session was less messy than the previous attempt since we both knew what we were doing. As before, I stood behind her and brushed her from the view in the mirror. I found navigating her mouth with the brush significantly less difficult this time. While brushing, I noticed that she seemed unsure of what to do with her hands tonight. She moved them from the sink to almost touching my hands to her hips on more than one occasion. In the end, she thanked me for brushing her teeth for her. I felt a little awkward, and I'm sure she did too. Once was just for fun, but now it felt... well, it wasn't what I might normally call intimate, but this is a lot closer than we've been since she was 6 or so. I'm not sorry I did it. She expressed genuine gratitude for my help. She also suggested that my brushing skill had improved. I was happy to receive her praise. Since this chain of events was initiated here, I thought I might post this in hopes that the OP of that thread see that his request did not fall on deaf ears. Monday, October 5th, 2009. I have a new story for you, A. Last I posted, I had brushed my sister's teeth for the second time. Unlike the first time, the second brushing felt more deliberate and awkward. I thought that we wouldn't have a third performance. I was wrong. While I watched television about an hour ago, she sat down beside me. Her giggles and smile told me that she was having a good night. I listened as she spoke blithely about her adventures at school. At length, I put my arm around her and squeezed her briefly against me, then returned to the television. Not to be ignored, she told me that she wanted to switch tonight. Further inquiry on my part revealed that she wished to brush my teeth. I accepted. Since she stands a full head shorter than myself, conventional brushing was difficult. I tried sitting down so that she could brush from the front, but that didn't work, resulting in toothpaste on my shirt. She eventually procured a small step stool and stood behind me, brushing my teeth in the mirror as I had done hers. The feeling was exquisite. She was incredibly gentle. She asked frequently if she was pushing too hard. After each pause for me to spit, she re-engaged with renewed fervor. I was sorry for it to end. When she stepped down, she told me that I was right, that brushing someone else's teeth was fun. She was shining, and so was I. Thank you, A. This was the most worthwhile endeavor you recommended. Friday, October 9th, 2009. I have posted in the past on this topic. My sister and I have developed an occasionally problematic and somewhat needy nightly ritual because of these threads. After brushing her teeth at the behest of A, she decided that in addition to my brushing her teeth, she should brush mine. As of this week, we're brushing our own teeth only once a day. The nightly brushing is done by the other. The odd thing about this, though, is that I really don't want to stop it. It's both endearing and affirming that my sister and I are close. Something of which I am most glad. What follows is a comment seemingly asking about the ages of Oral Hygiene Kun and his sister. We don't have the original comment archived, but we do have the reply. I'm in graduate school, she's in high school. I approached the subject with curiosity and interest, offering to brush her teeth only as a passing fancy, and while she initially declined the offer, after we talked about other subjects for a while, she decided that she did, in fact, want to give it a try. This has been 3 weeks ago. It was only awkward after the second brushing. Before that was fun, and everything afterwards has been great. It was the second time that really made me think we wouldn't be doing it again. Thursday, October 22nd, presumably 2009. Hello again, A, from he who brushes his sister's teeth. I have an update to my curious tale for you. A quick recap of events thus far. Roughly a month ago, A suggested that we should brush our sister's teeth for them. Intrigued by this concept, I did so. My sister and I so enjoyed the experience that not long afterward, she hinted that she wanted me to offer to brush them again, and I did so. From that point on, I have brushed her teeth every night, and she has occasionally brushed mine. This odd arrangement has continued until last night. As was the routine, when my sister had finished her shower, she requested that I brush her teeth. The thrill of the act is past somewhat. Now I comply for the closeness that holding her softly and cleaning her teeth provides. Tonight went as previous brushings have, until the end. As I finished, I told her we were done, and I prepared to head back to internet minutia. Before I could turn away, she solidly embraced me and asked to reciprocate immediately. Somewhat surprised by her hug, I acquiesced. She took particular care that night to brush my teeth thoroughly. She would tilt my head this way and that so as to get the best angle in the mirror to view her work. I'd be lying if I said I didn't relish in her doting. Her gentle and cautious brushing is truly luxurious. After at least twice again the time a normal brushing would take, she reluctantly ended my session. I thanked her, but she informed me that we weren't done yet. Still standing on her footstool, she ordered me to open my mouth. After what seemed like a long while, she looked at my teeth. I watched her eyes dart around my mouth and occasionally meet my gaze. On the stool, she stood a few inches taller than me. Usually the height difference between us is quite the opposite. Hesitantly, experimentally, she put her index finger on my mouth and pushed lightly on my back teeth. Amused by the serious face she was wearing, I responded by closing my mouth and sucking her finger. She blushed instantly and let out an audible yip, pulling her finger from my mouth. Grinning at her, I waited for her response. She looked in my eyes and looked at my mouth and edged closer to me. I'm no fool, A. I understood your intent when you made that threat a month ago. I didn't care. I understood my family well enough that I was quite sure there would be no drastic changes to our relationship because of any one event. That said, my sister's charmingly rouged cheeks, uneven breath, and parted lips told me that at that moment that I may have been mistaken. That she wanted to express our newfound closeness with a different sort of affection. I wouldn't say I froze, rather, I simply didn't move as she leaned forward. I closed my eyes and felt her mouth brush against my upper lip. When no further pressure followed, I opened my eyes and saw her looking guiltily away from me. I hugged her against me and told her thank you again, and then left the room. This was yesterday evening. She has been cordial but skittish every time I see her tonight, and in about 1 hour she will have her shower and prepare for bed. I'm curious to know if she'll ask me to brush her teeth again. I find myself hoping she does. Monday, October 26th. Oral Hygiene Brother here with an update. Thanks to A, I'm quite content to brush my sister's teeth for her and she mine, but after what can best be described as an awkward, aborted, post-kissing attempt on her part earlier, I was concerned that our toothbrushing days were numbered. However, the next night indicated that the status quo had returned again. This update is not about recent events. Our relationship currently seems stable. Rather, I'll describe the events that took place on the day following my previous update. On that night, I brushed her teeth as was usual, and again she brushed mine afterward. I felt a thrill at her request. This meant that she was not upset about what happened earlier. After she finished, I turned around and lifted her down from the step stool she had been using. In that moment in which our faces were close, I felt an impulse which I could not ignore. I pecked her lightly on the lips. Her bright blushing and immediate demand to know what I thought I was doing was precious. Could her brother not kiss as a show of appreciation, I reasoned? Surely there was no harm in a brief family kiss, particularly since we both now had minty fresh breath. I admitted to her that the closeness I felt with her over the past month was very valuable to me, and that I was glad to have her as my steadfast, irreplaceable sister. Warily, she admitted that she felt the same about our improved rapport, and affirmed that the family-style kisses, i.e., no tongue apparently, would be okay. Shortly after going to bed, she inquired as to why I originally wanted to brush her teeth. At a loss for words, I gave her the truth. The internet suggested it. After considering this, she asked whether the internet offered any other such suggestions. I declined to go into the naughtier aspects, but I gave her a few examples I remembered. She found the hairbrushing suggestion particularly interesting. This has resulted in an increase in our nightly grooming time together. Oral Hygiene Kun said, in reply to a comment which again we don't have archived, yes. In short, after I brushed her teeth, she demanded to brush mine. She spent a great deal of time on that. Afterward, she wanted to look at my teeth and eventually put a finger in my mouth, on which I gently sucked, causing her some degree of consternation. After that, she leaned in close, and I suspected what she wanted to do. I closed my eyes and waited for her soft lips to brush over my upper lip only. She must have significantly embarrassed herself, though, because she stopped. I hugged her and thanked her, and I wasn't sure what to make of that at the time. I want to take a quick stop here just to talk about the story real quick, and again reiterate what I said earlier. If it's a work of fiction, truly some of the greatest stuff I've ever read. And you know, with the prose and everything, how the OP goes merrily into details describing them with almost this rose-tinted glasses feel, I do get the impression that this is, for lack of a better word, fake. However, if it's not, if it is real, damn. You know, you can call it weird if you want, but I hope you all see what I mean by this being morbidly engaging. You know, the prose in this story is written with the finesse of a romance novel. How they start seemingly apart and slowly grow closer over the course of the story. It's written with the finesse of a novel. This is written like a web novel, if you will. But because of where the story was posted, 4chan, the anonymity that is inherent in that, it adds an air to the story that makes it feel real. I'm like 90% sure this story's fake, but if it is real, and there is a possibility, I don't think there's ever been any follow-ups or updates on this. If there is, I'll make a video about it in the future. But if it is real, and there's a small possibility that it is, it's so weirdly fascinating. Now, I'm not saying I'm gonna run and brush my own sister's teeth. That very concept sounds abhorrent to me. But you get what I mean, right? You get what I mean. You get me. You know, this is better than some of the visual novels I read. Truly. You know, I gushed about the sister out in Tayatama, but honestly doesn't even hold a candle to the finesse of writing that is Oral Hygiene, brother. Anywho, I think that's enough time dilly-dallying. Let's go back to the story. Friday, October 30th. I didn't brush my sister's teeth tonight. She is feeling ill. Despite the possibility that she has the dreaded swine flu, I've been taking care of her. If I get sick as well, then so be it. It will have been for a good cause. For most of the day, I have sat with her and kept her hydrated. I also served as a nurse for any requests she might have had. She has taken medicine for her fever, and I have been monitoring her health. Tiredness, chills, fever, dizziness, and cough. For my part, I find myself distracted by her pain. At the risk of sounding cliché, I would take it upon myself if I could. I don't tell her that, of course. She has enough to cope with as it stands. In lieu of describing a nightly brushing, I'll instead mention that serving as a nurse for my sister was not at all distasteful. Chauvinistic or not, seeing her in a weakened state reminded me of how adorably cute my sister is. Of course, helping her to relax and recover was always paramount in my mind. When she felt cold, I brought her additional blankets and sat with her as she sipped hot tea. We talked of idle things when she had the strength to do so, and I let her rest when she felt tired. She expressed to me how calm she felt when I sat with her, and thanked me for wasting my time taking care of her. Running my hand along her shoulder and arm as she lay on her side, I confided that I never considered time spent with her a waste. She's resting now. I would not be on A were it otherwise. I write these updates for A because you inspired me to become closer with my sister. Times such as these remind me that we were always close, however. I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but it should come as a surprise to no one that the /A board on 4chan is about anime. Hell, considering that this is late 2009, Nisemonogatari was freshly out around the time, if I do believe so. That original post that was the impetus for all this, though not archived, was probably aping off of the concepts presented in Nisemonogatari, if I had to guess. Anyways, back to it. Monday, November 2nd. I have an update for you, A. My sister brushed my teeth tonight. Naturally, I brushed hers as well, but the events that transpired afterward will likely perk your interest. As you remember, my sister was ill recently. To my relief, she has entirely recovered and has returned to her usual energetic self. However, she had not requested my presence for teeth cleaning activities since she fell ill. I assumed with a heavy heart that we would be self-brushing henceforth. Tonight proved that this would not be the case, as I happily obliged when she asked for dental assistance. I brushed her teeth with a bit more zeal than was typical, the net result being somewhat messier than was strictly necessary. Once she realized my intention, though, she happily played along. Her tongue playfully dodged the brush during my attempts to clean it, though it was eventually cornered and brushed. After I finished with her teeth, she took up the brush and, surprisingly, attempted to brush from the front. Surprising, because we both know that means toothpaste cleanup afterward. Halfway through my session, she switched to the usual from-behind position. Her body pressed against mine as she brushed. When she finished, we cleaned up the area and ourselves. During a break in the laughter we had over tonight's toothbrushing adventure, my sister asked if she thought I was still contagious. Offhandedly, I replied that I doubted it. Later, as we hugged each other goodnight, she told me that she hoped I was right about her as she gave me a light, quick kiss. As she hugged me again, she explained that it was a thank you for taking care of her. When I didn't immediately respond, she laughed and claimed that I was blushing before going to her room. It seems I was taken off guard tonight. Saturday, November 2nd. While I am my sister's oral hygienist, my story won't focus on that topic tonight. We continue brushing the other's teeth, though our grooming habits have spilled over into other areas as well. These days, I brush her hair for her as well as her teeth, for example. That said, I thought I'd provide an update which is not restricted to the bathroom, so to speak. We've grown very close these past 2 months. My sister and I now freely share our time with each other. Today, we had planned to do our shopping together, but that plan evolved into an outing for us both. Rather than wasting the trip strictly on trivialities, we opted to first visit the ice skating rink. To illustrate the stark contrast of our improved relationship these past 2 months, I have never before managed to drag my sister onto the ice. While I am reasonably proficient, her experience on the ice prior to today comprised of one ill-fated attempt roughly 8 years ago. She was understandably nervous about this venture, but she was insistent that she would learn to skate today. Naturally, her first steps on the ice were hopelessly cute. Gripping the rail, she treaded the ice uneasily and spent a great deal of time steadying herself. After some coaxing, she ventured away from the wall, though she would not do so without her hand in mine. While the interior of the rink was cold, her smile as I pulled her carefully around the ice kept me warm. I noted with satisfaction that by the end of our session, she had progressed considerably. Due to her ankles being unaccustomed to the skates, she needed to rest periodically and would watch me skate while she recuperated. At one point, as I helped her back onto the ice, a well-meaning bystander with whom she had been chatting asked her if this was her first skating attempt. She replied that it sort of was, to which the woman replied that it was good that my sister had her boyfriend there to help her. I arched an eyebrow when my sister did not bother to correct her. We spent most of today together, and we spent the evening in proximity to each other. I'm quite happy with this arrangement, and I suspect my sister feels the same. Saturday, November 28th. My sister and I traveled to our parents' house for Thanksgiving. We see them frequently, so it wasn't a monotonous homecoming occasion. However, this holiday proved rather telling about where my relationship with my sister is heading. On the drive to our parents, my sister was cheerful and spirited as usual. The energy she displays is certainly one of her more endearing qualities. Our arrival was met with hugs from the parents and offers of victuals. Dinner time was typical. Gratuitous amounts of Thanksgiving food and general updates about our lives for our parents. Eventually, the topic shifted to my graduate classmates, and my mother was quick to inquire as to whether there were any future mothers of her grandchildren among them. While I mentioned some of the strong points of my female classmates, I didn't specify any as a prospective mate. This led to a degree of good-natured teeth gnashing due to my mother desiring that I produce offspring for her to grandmother. During the conversation, I noticed a shift in my sister's behavior in response to these queries. Her participation in family discourse diminished considerably, as did her appetite. Even my mother noticed that she seemed to be gingerly playing with her cranberry sauce rather than eating it. When pressed about why she wasn't particularly hungry, she claimed that she was stressed from school. She was similarly quiet during our return trip, though she did venture a disjointed question about how I felt about having kids. After a brief consideration, I replied that it depended on whom I was having them with. She didn't answer right away, but after enough time has passed that I couldn't be sure if the two statements were connected, she asked simply whether I knew that she loved me. I said yes, of course. After a tense moment in the darkness, broken only by headlights and street lamps, I added that I loved her too. I heard the exhale, but she said nothing else until we arrived at home. I offered to let her go to the shower first, but she insisted I go first. After I finished, she took her shower, which lasted for some time. She later requested that I brush her teeth, and I did so. While I'm certain this will come as a disappointment to A, we do not brush each other's teeth every night anymore. It's simply not always convenient. Tonight, though, I took care of her teeth and she reciprocated. During my brushing, she mentioned that she wanted to go shopping early the next day at Black Friday sales. While I wasn't particularly enthusiastic about that, I agreed to go with her. She thanked me with a kiss. Though our nightly ritual seems to include a goodnight kiss if we both brush our teeth, her affection is always welcome. I'll be taking a short break writing the following day's segment. I prefer to write more concisely than this, and I do have someone who occasionally interrupts me. Again, I'm going to take a pause here. This whole Thanksgiving arc, for lack of a better term, these last couple paragraphs, I want it to be real. I want this story to be real, right? Call me crazy, call me, a little quirked up with it, but I want this story to be real, sheerly because of, the fascination I have in it, right? Like I said, I couldn't imagine anyone actually doing this with their sibling, but if it did happen, it would have to be like this, right? This almost fairy tale-esque writing of it. But because it's written so well, and written so story-like, with the mother just so happened to be asking about potential romantic interest at Thanksgiving dinner, it feels very, scripted, for lack of a better term. What do you all think? Am I crazy for secretly hoping this might be real? Or is it giga-based? Let me know in the comments below. Man, you ever think about if a video weirdly blows up? What if this video weirdly blows up and, people are mad at me? F them. They can never be this real. Also, again, taking a short break before writing the following day's segment, that feels very scripted. That feels very, very scripted. Almost a tell with that, honestly. It makes you wonder why the story isn't on AO3 or something, but no, 4chan green text. I respect the hustle. Again, the anonymity adds a certain je ne sais quoi, you know what I mean? Okay, moving on with the story. Sunday, November 29th. Hello again, A. Here is the continuation that I had hoped to give you yesterday. My sister asked me to take her shopping on Black Friday. For those of you who have never experienced this glut of consumerism, it involves most large retail chains offering particularly good deals early in the morning, which means that if you want to procure these bargains, you'll be required to wait outside stores until they open for business. Never one to say no to my sister, we woke up at 3:30 in the morning and set out to the stores. Weather that morning was particularly... What is this $5 word? Holy shit. Hold on. Give me just a moment. Recalcitrant. Having an obscenely uncooperative attitude toward authority or discipline. Okay. The weather that morning was particularly recalcitrant, and when we arrived at our first destination, the rain had changed into hail. We only had one umbrella between the two of us, so we shared it as we huddled together in the line near the entrance of the store. My sister shivered in the icy wind. Naturally, I couldn't stand for this, and opened my jacket before pressing her against me. I shushed her protest that someone we know might see us. It wasn't long before I felt her shivers abate and her arms wrap around me. Her head rested gently on my chest and neck. The calm that washed over me as I held her certainly made standing out in the damp cold more bearable. Once we got inside the store, there was a stampede to reach the best items and then quickly reach the checkout. I made sure we found what we needed and that my sister, due to her diminutive stature, wasn't pummeled by the crowd. We then repeated this chaotic scene at 2 more department stores, though we did not have to wait outside again. Once we had finished making our purchases, we began the drive home. My sister thanked me for coming with her and admitted that there was no way she could have come without me. I smiled and asked her to let me know the next time she needed a bodyguard. When we returned home, the time was scarcely past 11 in the morning. After a lunch of leftover Thanksgiving food, we sat on the couch with the intention of watching anime. However, the early waking and the bustle of shopping had left us both drained, and it wasn't long before I noticed my sister sleeping quietly beside me. I pulled a blanket over us both and shut my eyes as well. I awoke to my sister squirming beside me. She apologized for waking me up, but her smile shined as she told me that was the best nap she had in ages. She then headed off to the bathroom. We spent the rest of the day oblivious to the passing of time. We watched some Bakemonogatari, we played on the Wii, and we prepared dinner as chef and sous chef. I half expected, or perhaps hoped, after brushing her teeth again that night, that she would ask for us to sleep together on the sofa. She did not, however. For my part, I'm unsure of how far our relationship can safely progress. I am unwilling or unable to draw any sort of line. Again, another notch on the belt of this story being fake. They're literally watching Monogatari in the story. I forgot about this. I forgot about that. This is my first time coming back to the story in a minute. They're watching the show. Okay, they're watching the show. The first season, but they're watching the show. Come on. Moving on. Monday, November 30th. Thank you for your suggestions. Well, on with the update then, as apparently unsolicited as it may be. Some of my classmates invited me out for a few drinks on Saturday. When my sister asked where I was going, I told her that I had a hot date. I hadn't expected the rush of emotions that her face showed. She seemed quite shocked and upset as well, though her only response was, "Oh." I quickly revealed that it wasn't really a date and that it was just drinks with friends, but she didn't seem to think my joke was particularly amusing. She wasn't sure she believed me either, so my advice to her was that since this event wasn't a date, she should come along and make it one. She accepted. We arrived at the Mexican cantina, and my classmates were quick to inquire about my little lady. Most of them were greatly amused that I would bring my sister drinking with me, especially when she's not of age. I suggested that she was present to soak up the culture of academia from us graduate students. A few of my classmates proceeded to quiz my sister on her grade level, her college aspirations, and her future career choices while the rest of us ordered drinks and appetizers. When the drinks came, I offered my sister a taste of the mojito I had ordered, which she enjoyed. The rest of the evening went from discussing work-related minutiae, hearing tales of Thanksgiving adventures, and politely discouraging one of my classmates whom I don't care for from continuing his flirtatious behavior towards and general ogling of my sister. On the way home, my sister asked if she looked drunk. I laughed and told her absolutely, though her 3 or 4 sips throughout the night couldn't possibly have left her buzzed. She announced that she really enjoyed our date, and she wanted to go with me again next time. As we pulled into the driveway, I told her that we could go on another one sometime this week if she wanted to. Thus, we're going to a different restaurant, just the 2 of us, this Tuesday. Mind you, eating out together isn't particularly unusual. Calling it a date is. One last point of interest, she didn't ask that I brush her teeth that night, but she did say "I love you" in a bashful sort of way after she bid me goodnight. I told her same to you, and I meant it. Since then, she's made it a habit to remind me of that every night. Just tonight, she emphasized those words with a hug from behind while I sat at my desk, a suggestion not to stay up too late, and a kiss on the cheek. Oral Hygiene-kun said in response to someone, I imagine, "How am I to know if she's a virgin? I don't recall her having any boyfriends, but her life is her own. I spent several years during my undergraduate studies separated from her. Only recently, in the past year, have we been living together." Of course the 4chan commenters would be asking if the sister's a virgin. Oh my god. Friday, December 4th. My apologies. I'm having some formatting issues. This is a rather long post. Earlier this week, my sister and I went out on our planned dinner date. We got to the restaurant late, in part due to my not expecting my sister to take as long as she did to doll herself up for the occasion. When she first came out of the bathroom with a face full of eyeliner, makeup, and lipstick, I couldn't help but laugh. She was rather cross with me until I mentioned how lucky she was that her natural cuteness didn't require her to apply makeup. She decided to wash her face and start over. Dinner at the restaurant was almost typical for us. We've gotten used to eating out once a week or so. No matter what either of us orders, we end up shopping from the other's plate, and that night was no exception. As my sister prepared a sample of her meal for me, I wondered when it was that I stopped caring if the utensils she used to separate my portion from hers had already been in her mouth. Certainly that had been aversive to me in the past, but no longer. She mentioned that she was thinking about college and that she wanted to go into bioscience. This surprised me, but then she told me which major she wanted to pursue: pre-dentistry. I told her, speaking from experience, that I thought she would make an excellent dentist. The smile with which she responded was so bright, made me glad that I had complimented her choice. After dinner, we went for a walk in the city park. She held my hand as we walked the path around the pond. Eventually, we stopped at the gazebo and watched the cold reflections in the water. During a moment of silence, my sister edged close to me and asked me to warm her up like on Friday. Without hesitation, I opened my coat and welcomed her into my arms. We stayed like that for some time, enjoying the other's warmth in the chilly night. My hand caressed her back, memorizing the form of her body through her clothes. I had felt my resistance slipping, resistance to a desire long suppressed, and at that moment, I decided not to deny it any longer. I separated us long enough for me and looked into her eyes, searching for any clue that what I had just resolved to do wouldn't be a terrible mistake. I saw my dear sister, whom I loved very much. Hesitating no longer, I kissed her. It was not a brotherly kiss. At first, she closed her eyes and accepted my lips, but as I kissed more deeply, she gasped and pushed me away. Confusion and fear, my chest tightened. It was over, I thought. She despised me for what I had just done. Why shouldn't she? We had been so careful to keep our affection innocent until now. I had ruined that. Sorry, I said. I'm sorry. My sister's breathing slowed. She stepped directly before me, her gaze steady and defiant, and asked what that was. I lamely offered that it was an end-of-the-date kiss, expecting a slap on my face. No, I said, no, that's not what it was. The torrent of what I felt for her came out in a broken ramble. How much more enjoyable life was living together with her, how at ease I felt with her, how her energy filled the house, how much joy her smile gave me. How much I want to see her have a bright and happy future. I believe I even mentioned how attractive I found her. During a pause in my tirade, she stopped me. She took my hand and said it was okay. I tried to continue, but she told me not to worry about it and pulled me towards the car. I turned the key in the ignition and without looking at her asked if I should take her to our parents' house. She asked me why. Ruefully, I admitted that my impulse control was rather weak and suggested that she would probably feel safer at our parents'. Then, I felt her arm loop around mine and she held me tightly, as she said she's always felt safe with me. She said I never needed to apologize, and she couldn't believe all the embarrassing stuff I told her. She shushed my protest and told me to take her home. To our home. And there you have it. The following day, I brought up the subject again, and she was not afraid to discuss it. She told me she never knew how much I thought about her, though she admitted that she had a crush on me since before she moved in. She also took the opportunity to hint strongly that she has never had a steady boyfriend. Like so much we do together, even talking about our possible romance felt relaxed and easy. She wasn't sure how she felt about moving beyond kissing, but she was okay, though surprised by what happened at the park. She also said that us keeping a secret made her feel sexy. Naturally, I concurred. After dinner this evening, we watched more episodes of Chobits together. She's enjoying that series much more than Bakemonogatari. She says all the characters are adorable. At the risk of sounding banal, I find the series has a whole new life when you watch it with someone you love. I want it to be real. I want it to be real. It's not, but I want it to be real. This shit's written like a goddamn soap opera. I love it. The prose in this, the f***ing $5, $10 words which keep popping up from time to time. Clearly, this isn't someone's actual experience, but the storytelling is just so gripping and enticing. I have read many a light novel in my life, and none can compare to this. This is free. You can go read this right now. I'd pay for this. I'd pay like $5-10 to have this in a novel form. That's all I'm saying. I ain't buying the shitty AI versions on Amazon.com though. That. Back to the story. Wednesday, December 9th. On with the update then. As you know, I recently informed my sister of my love for her, and she reciprocated that love. I suppose I thought our lives would be different once we had expressed our feelings. Instead, daily life is largely unchanged. So much of our free time was spent with the other that romantic intimacy seems merely an extension of what we already felt. One dangerous effect of our esoteric relationship is how comfortable we've become with physical contact between us. Kisses before and after I take her to school, warm embraces, and hand-holding in stores would be difficult to explain to those aware of our kinship. In contrast, our time together at home has grown increasingly affectionate. While quick, light kisses are fine for when we're out and about, we don't hold back in privacy. Because of this, her previous lack of experience in kissing is quickly becoming a non-issue. Again, we've decided that it's up to her as to when we go further. That said, as of 2 days ago, we're sleeping in the same bed. We continue to watch anime together, of course. We recently finished the episode of Chobits where she cooked a meal and wore only an apron for Hideki. While I know this was a common theme, it was the first time my sister had seen the apron-only motif. After the episode, I asked why she didn't wear an apron like that when we prepared a meal. She jokingly said she would, but it was a shame we didn't own any long aprons. I informed her that I now knew what she was getting for Christmas. How we came to sleep in the same bed. We had just finished an episode of anime, and she decided that it was now bedtime. We had both already showered and brushed each other's teeth by this point. She was having trouble leaving the couch, though, since my arms loitered around her waist. Giving her a gentle squeeze, I explained that I didn't want to give up my nice, cozy hand warmer yet. She reminded me that she had class in the morning. What followed was several minutes of two-way teasing, mostly regarding how I didn't have class now, but she did, and how she needed to practice driving so her current chauffeur can sleep in on days like tomorrow. Eventually, I relented and wistfully helped her up. We stood for a moment in the living room, the only light glowing from the television. My sister threw her arms around my neck and gave me a deliciously minty goodnight kiss, which was exactly what I intended to do to her, but was a moment too slow. When we broke the kiss, I understood exactly why she held me in a light, swaying hug instead of going to bed. I wanted to stay with her too. She asked if I was also going to bed now. I replied with an affirmative murmur. I felt her tense a little and hug me tighter. She surprised me when she asked if we should sleep in my room or hers. I suggested that my bed was a little bigger, and she nodded in approval. She retrieved her pillows from her bed and put them beside mine. Now, I usually sleep in the nude, and I suspect my sister knew this. When she reluctantly began to remove her pajamas, I proposed that since it was a cold night, we might want to sleep in our night clothes. She smiled, then laughed and agreed, thanking me for being so considerate. Once we were both under the covers, I was shivering, not from the cold. My sister's warmth in my bed, the scent of her shampoo, and the sounds of her light sighs and breathing were intoxicating. I felt her hand on my chest. It probed my body until it found my arm, then sliding down to my own hand, it intertwined our fingers. Moments passed. As I lay on my back, I felt my sister moving to get comfortable. Putting my arm under her, I pulled her close to me. Both of us now being warm and relaxed, we said our goodnights and I love yous again. This would be the first time she slept on my shoulder, though it wouldn't be the last. The following morning was certainly better than average. While I'm not a morning person, waking up beside your lovely sister improves your mood considerably. It's also worth mentioning that tonight is the first night that we haven't gone to bed together since then. My sister was a little disappointed when I said I wanted to stay up and take care of a few things on the internet. She said that was okay, but that I should hurry up and come keep her warm. Something I haven't mentioned before, but upon reflection, is this a problematic age gap? I mean, the sister was in high school, and the OP was in graduate school. That's probably a little problematic, right? But, like, if it's fake, it's based. But if it's real, man, I wonder where they are now. So, it's at this point in the story that I am likely going to have to start censoring stuff for the YouTube video. If you want this uncensored, check out my Patreon, or, just go read the story yourself. But it is at this point in the story where Oral Hygiene brother and his sister's relations, get a little bit more spicy. You're going to see what I mean as we continue the story. Monday, December 14th. Oral hygiene, brother here. I have another update. Before that, however, I should mention that my sister and I have finished Chobits. She told me that she liked Chi and Sumino, enjoyed watching Hideki and Chi fall in love, and thought the end was really sweet. She also said that she wants Sumino for a cell phone. When I asked if she wanted to watch another anime, she responded that she did. I asked her what kind of story she wanted to see next, and after offering her a few genre and style options, she settled on an adventure featuring a love story, and plot advancement may involve a little violence, but not too much, and if possible, no big robots. I told her I'd try to find something she liked. Also, for those of you uninitiated, Chobits is also very relevant to this story. It's essentially an anime, if I am correct in my assumption, where the main character basically lives with this robot doll, right? They essentially spend a few years together, kind of like enjoy each other's company, and slowly fall in love. If you'll notice, the progression of Chobits is kind of similar to this story, which then further implies to me that, the story's probably fake. I want it to be real, but it's probably fake. Probably fake, especially because it's stealing plot points and structures from other animes. But, irregardless, we continue. Now, since I'm a denizen of A, I have an idea of a series that more or less fits these criteria. However, since A was helpful in the past choosing an anime my sister would enjoy, I will again put the question to the forum. What series should I show my sister to follow Chobits? This update begins in the early morning on Sunday. As usual, my sister and I shared the bed that night. I am eminently grateful for my sister's love, but with the bitterly cold weather we've been experiencing, I'm equally happy that she's willing to share her body heat with me. We leave the thermostat in our home rather low. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. There's just straight up a scene I cannot put into the YouTube video. To summarize what happens here, the sister starts experimenting with oral hygiene kun in his sleep. I think that works. She's doing science experiments on him and shit. You know what I mean? God, I'm tired. I opened my eyes to see her lying quietly beside me, her eyes shut and breathing measured. The scene was simply too cute for me to bear, and I kissed her lightly on the lips, nose, and forehead before heading off to the bathroom. As I prepared for the day, I questioned why I chose to wake up at that moment. Was my love for my sister completely non-sexual? Certainly not. She had featured prominently in countless of my fantasies. Fantasies from years past, as well as those crafted in the last few moments. I washed my face as I imagined the scene of what might have happened if she completed her task, and tried to shake any scurrious images from my mind. Did I want her to continue despite knowing I was conscious? Perhaps that was the reason I thought. Our transition from mostly innocent familial love to romantic partners had been somewhat abrupt. I wondered if the turning point from a romantic to a sexual relationship would be similarly hasty. Upon reflection, though, I believe it was simply my attempt to protect my little sister, even if it meant protecting her from myself. I've been in enough relationships to understand that purity, innocence, and chastity are not considered virtues or even worthy of mention in dating or romance. Nevertheless, the thought of sullying my sister, my dearly beloved younger sister, the beautiful child my mother allowed me to hold in the hospital room all those years ago, the one girl in all the world whom I would always love and for whom I would live, kill, or die, of staining her body and soul is likely what gave me pause. Since then, I have rethought this position. Later events that day would suggest that she was indeed curious about sex and was interested in engaging in a sexual relationship with me. It wasn't fair that I should place my sister on a pedestal so tall that no one, not even myself, could reach her. I reminded myself that no matter what I felt for her, all that I would do would be for her happiness. I didn't mention my turmoil over her actions to my sister. She has enough to worry about without also carrying my concern for her future. Instead, after my sister made breakfast for us, we spent the day shopping for Christmas presents. At the mall, my sister stopped and lingered as we were walking by a certain popular lingerie store. Taking my hand, she started to pull me towards the entrance. I told her that if she wanted to browse in there, fine, but I'd wait outside. She sweetly insisted that I go in too. After all, she rationalized, I'm the one buying the presents. Reluctantly, I followed her into the store. My sister's energy and laughter, which I always thought of as a blessing, drew more attention to us in the store than I would have liked, though most likely no one really noticed us. Any choice of undergarment or nightie my sister picked up was immediately presented to me, as though I was an expert on bras and panties. When I feigned disinterest in a particularly sexy set, she asked me what was wrong with her choice. I told her that she should make her own decisions, and I'd buy whatever she liked as a gift. Pouting slightly, she drew close to me and lowered her voice. What we picked affected her as much as me, she reasoned in a whisper, since whatever lingerie I picked would be the wrapping for my Christmas present. She smiled coyly and giggled as recognition dawned on my face. I was glad at that moment, there in a ladies' undergarment store, that I was wearing boxers and baggy pants. In the end, she chose 3 sets, 2 for Christmas presents, and 1 that she promised not to wear until Christmas. She also perused jewelry and accessories while we were there, but she did not make any purchases. On the drive home, I asked her if she was serious about what she mentioned in the store. She told me that she had given it a lot of thought, and she knew how much I loved her. She held my arm as she expressed that she loved me with all her heart, and though she knew it was corny, she wanted our first time to be special. Momentarily speechless, when I found my voice, I told her I didn't think it was corny at all, and I reaffirmed that I did love her. I also added that she should never feel she needed to do anything she didn't want to do. She said she knew I'd say that. She told me she wanted to do it. We had to wait for Christmas, though. Just like in a stereotypical romance anime, all the moves happen around Christmas time. Really getting a incestuous Toradora vibes from this, if you know what I mean. Let's move on. Monday, December 21st. Oral Hygiene brother here. Thank you for all the anime suggestions in my previous thread. The suggestions that came after I left the thread were not discounted. I also found the imposter accusations interesting. I wonder what it was that so set that update apart from the previous ones. My sister did not like Genro. Her response to the ending was nonplussed apathy and surprise that the story was over so quickly. We followed that film with Spirited Away, which she declared average. We have started another long-running series, however, and she seems interested thus far. It is also her first undubbed anime. They were watching Monogatari. Monogatari doesn't have a dub. The story's fake. I don't have an update to present tonight, apart from our spending inordinate amounts of time together. I have little to discuss about our relationship. As my sister is now on winter break, I expect we will remain inextricable throughout the following days. This is, for me, a cause for vague unease. My sister now rarely wishes to visit her friends, preferring to stay by my side. At first I found this behavior charming, but I worry that her remaining stint in high school will be less than pleasant if she distances herself from her social group. Of course, who she chooses to keep company is her own choice. If I am to be her principal companion, I truly hope to live up to her expectations. Not to be insensitive to those who would like to hear more about our personal time together, I will also mention that I have seriously considered opening my Christmas present early these past few nights. My sister insists on nesting her body as closely to mine as possible when we sleep. My hands seem to invariably find their way to her pristine wrapped copy of Tsukihime for the PC. I'm no good with euphemisms. The stupidest fucking shit trips this YouTube system, bruh. During this time. A few nights ago, our petting became so heavy that she abruptly ended the session and scooted to the bathroom, saying that she had to pee. I found it particularly difficult to sleep for some time after she returned. Friday, January 1st. Do you know my name, A? For reasons which will be made clear, I haven't visited A for several days. I would like to provide an update for the story of my sister and myself, though I will admit that while the story is somewhat lengthy, it has precious to do with anime or manga. That said, A is the medium of the story, and I would like to post it here regardless. May I continue with the update? Indeed. Very well. Much has happened, and I will report some of it. I should forewarn you, at this point it will be exceedingly difficult for me to provide updates without sounding like a braggart. If you interpret these posts as vainglorious, you are not mistaken. My sister and I traveled to our grandparents' house for Christmas. While I won't bore you with details about our personal Christmas holiday, I will mention that during dinner, my mother commented that she was so glad my sister and I were getting along so well. My sister didn't hesitate to list my faults as evidence that getting along wasn't easy for her, which demonstrates to me that she's now become quite the actress. I suspect that her performances hardly matter though, and that will eventually give away the truth. It's not as though we can go back to the way we were anymore. On Christmas night, I had sex with my sister. Let's fucking go! Ooh! So, I most definitely can't get away with the stuff in this chapter either. You know, there's a funny specific line where he says he's not going to go in too much detail because it's personal, and then proceeds to go into too much detail for a fucking YouTube video. So yeah, what happened is what I said. He fucks his sister. What a guy. What a champ. He has some very strange comments about her body. You'll have to go to the Patreon for those though. I literally can't put that on YouTube. The reason for this was that our parents were sleeping one room away from us. For that matter, we weren't even supposed to be sleeping in the same room. Allow me to elucidate. In the past few years for our New Year celebration, we returned home and watched the Times Square ball drop with our parents. This year, however, my sister did not want to spend New Year's with our parents. Instead, she wanted the two of us to be alone. As I've mentioned, her recent exclusion of anyone but me from her daily life is worrisome. I insisted that we visit our parents, about which she was not at all acquiescent. Eventually, we compromised by asking our parents to come visit us rather than us visiting them, which they agreed to do. Of course, that meant they would be spending the night at our house. Much of our day prior to their arrival involved cleaning our home and setting the scene, so to speak. It would not do for our parents to find my sister's bed neatly unused, for instance. Again, our personal New Year's celebration is not particularly pertinent to the story, though one event that night involving consumption of alcohol prior to the New Year might have had significantly worse consequences had things transpired differently. Since dinner, all of us had been sipping various mixed drinks I had been preparing. After her second rum-based drink, my sister was clearly feeling the effects of the alcohol, and our parents noticed. Crossly, my mother demanded that I quit giving liquor to my sister, and remarked that I should be more conscientious about things like that if she's going to continue living with me. My sister was quick to defend me, and thankfully the conversation remained good-natured, but I couldn't help but notice a vague tension in her words. My parents are unused to late-night frivolity. As the ball dropped, my sister and I had to wake them. We celebrated the New Year briefly, and as I watched various couples kiss in Times Square, my sister nestled closely beside me, her eyes requesting what I very much wanted to give her. I scanned the room and decided I might get away with it and pressed my lips to my sister's. Each passing moment we spent connected, our secret exposed to those most in the position to disapprove, seemed fatally long. Though I'm sure our kiss lasted mere seconds. As the kiss broke, we glanced around fervently, but both our parents continued to obliviously watch the TV or nap. We finished our sleeping arrangements and retired to separate rooms, which is now quite unusual for both of us. In the morning, our parents thanked us for our hospitality, and we said our goodbyes. No sooner than our parents had left, my sister was naked in my arms. Afterward, she told me that our New Year's kiss had made her feel so hot she could barely sleep. She agreed that it was probably because we could have so easily been caught, and this concerned me. I realize now that telling my story to you, is far more cathartic than I had thought. To be able to share a potentially devastating secret and be given encouragement for one's choices are both benefits which I can enjoy and my sister cannot. While I feel my sister needs a confidant with whom she can discuss aspects of our relationship, I don't know how to approach this subject with her, nor what sort of solution I might propose. There is one last point I will mention in this overly long-winded update. Tonight, I gave her a present I had intended to give her on the first hour of the new year, though I should have given to her at Christmas. We had been talking about living together after she finishes high school, and I had asked her if she really wanted to stay with me long-term. She had responded that she did, without question. Now, I cannot say honestly that I feel no remorse whatsoever over what we've done. To be accurate, I feel I'm depriving my sister. If she stays with me, she'll never be able to show our parents how she looks in a wedding gown. She won't be able to give our parents a grandchild. She'll never have the luxury of what society deems a normal relationship. So when she told me she wanted to stay with me forever, I told her that I had felt the same way and I had something I wanted to give her. I knew I was rushing into this commitment and that it could technically never count, but I knelt in front of her and offered her a platinum engagement band. As she stretched out her hand and asked me to put it on her finger, I thought about how that might be the first time I was happy to have made her cry. Mainly, though, I thought about how that was a moment my little sister deserved to have. What a story. What a story, Mark. Wednesday, January 13th. Oral Hygiene brother here. I have an update for A, though I'm not sure it contains anything of merit. My sister and I finished Outlaw Star. She considers it a top-shelf anime, though she was quite upset that Hilda didn't survive the early episodes. She also thought it was interesting watching the series in its original Japanese, which might or might not have been said just to please me. She was acting too kittenish at the time for me to hope to receive a straight answer. While I'm reasonably sure she possesses a moderate interest in anime, it seems she watches it mostly as an excuse for us to snuggle together on the sofa for long stretches at a time. My sister told me that her friends suspect she's seeing someone. This is hardly surprising considering how openly happy she is these days, just as I am. When I tried to offer suggestions about how to deal with the situation, my sister told me that she was just letting me know, and that I didn't need to try and fix the problem. She said talking to me about it was all the help I needed to give. On a similar note, I earlier acknowledged that it is entirely her decision if she chooses to wear our ring to school. Which she does. I've talked to her about the possible negative results of spending time only with me, and she's taken that advice to heart. While she usually insists on rushing home and staying with me after school most days, she visited her friend's house for a few hours yesterday. Of course, our schedules aren't quite as optimal this winter either, since I can't pick her up twice a week due to classes. Even so, most of our free time during the week is dedicated to activities we can enjoy together, whether it's skating, movies, anime, cooking, working on homework, shopping, sledding, or yes, brushing our teeth. We are genuinely happy with each other's company. I can't help mentioning that our nights together have been, and continue to be, exceedingly intense. Our connection far exceeds any of my previous relationships. While I know that my sister is still young, I am certain that falling asleep in her arms and waking up beside her for the rest of my days is a gift of which I am not worthy, though I desire it nonetheless. I treasure every morning kiss as we start our daily routines, just as I cherish every embrace as I drop her off and pick her up at school. I understand that time will not stand still for us, but no matter what the future holds, I'll stay with her in whatever manner she wishes. Monday, March 22nd. Greetings from Oral Hygiene brother A. Seeing as I've not posted for some time, I expect a few of you will remember me. Nevertheless, as I currently have a bit more time than usual to gather my thoughts, I would like to offer an update about my sister and myself. As always, the subject matter of my updates is only parenthetically related to anime or manga. However, as the story has been told only on this board, I would like to post here again, if there are those who care to listen present. May I continue with the update? Very well. A brief disclaimer before we begin. If you are expecting details of our sex life, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I'm uncomfortable sharing our intimate moments as I consider it a breach of my sister's trust. That said, much has happened since my last update, though I will focus this update on just two main points, a general update of our relationship and a situation my sister and I face. The honeymoon period seems to have ended for us. We still very much love each other. In fact, I find it difficult to separate the love I have for her as my sister from the love I have of her as my fiancé. While we technically have not yet exchanged vows or had a ceremony, we are, for all intents and purposes, a couple. My sister makes full use of this fact, particularly when there's something she wants or there are chores that need done. She knows it melts my heart when she tells me that we're in a partnership, and that means I should help my wife clean up. Of course, there are advantages to this arrangement as well. On the many snow days we had this winter, my sister stayed home while I went to college, and the dinners she prepared while I was away were always particularly delicious. My sister is a truly amazing person. She never ceases to impress me with her varied interest and intelligence, saying nothing of her beauty. We've begun jogging together, mostly for fitness, but also so we can spend time together outside. On cold days or in the evenings, we often read together, as banal as that may sound. Many of the texts my sister has assigned were the same texts I once read. I find amusing my sister with silly accents for the characters and helping her understand the nuance of the text makes both the process infinitely more enjoyable as something we can do together. She also maintains an interest in anime. For instance, we watched both seasons of Darker Than Black, which she thought were quite good. She was a bit confused during the ear cleaning scene in the detective episode, and when I explained the situation, she immediately insisted that she clean my ears. Despite my implicit trust in her, I must admit I felt a certain hesitancy in letting anyone but myself insert objects into my ears. Once she began, though, everything turned out quite well, and we added another hygiene-related activity to the list of ways we've taken care of each other. Despite her maturity and intelligence, my sister also knows all too well which buttons to push to frustrate me. When bored with homework or tired in the morning and wishing for a snow day, she occasionally tells me that she just wants to quit school and be my housewife, knowing full well that this is possibly the most single disastrous decision she could make. I'm certain she only says it these days to irk me, but I let it affect me nonetheless. She also seems to be quite indifferent to the dangers of an unplanned pregnancy. And since a certain decision we made not too long ago, these dangers are very real. She tells me that she wants to start birth control, but she doesn't want her parents to suspect anything. I told her it's got to be her decision, but I'd rather she be safe and suspected than the alternative. We're still working on that decision. I mentioned we have a situation to consider. My sister has had several invitations to prom from various boys at her high school. She has turned them all down, and when asked for a reason, she said that she was going with someone else. That someone else was always a someone from another school those boys don't know. When I asked if she really wanted to go, she told me that she did, and there was only one person she wanted to go with her. I was, of course, flattered and more than happy to go to the dance with her until she revealed that while I could always go as her brother, she preferred that I go as her date. Now, I admit, we've both been rather remiss in our attempts to hide the romantic side of our relationship, but I worried that attending her prom night together and participating in slow dances in particular might reveal a little more publicly than is strictly safe. She accurately pointed out that 99% of the people in the dance wouldn't recognize me, but I was concerned about that 1%. I've met 3 of her friends and talked at length with 2 of them. Notwithstanding the teachers at the school who may remember me, if we appeared overly affectionate, those that know we're related could cause us trouble. I reiterated that I should probably be introduced as her brother rather than her boyfriend, which made her genuinely upset. In the end, I relented and were planning to have me sign in with my name, but once we're inside, I'm her college boyfriend she met on the internet. To be honest, I'm as excited as I am apprehensive. My sister and I hold hands and kiss when we're generally alone in public, but that's quite a different situation to embracing her on her high school dance floor, surrounded by her classmates. We're both taking frequent discovery risk, and I suspect that these are not due to carelessness, but rather a desire for confirmation. That is, I would very much like to introduce her to acquaintances as my wife, but that inability is a frustration that I am willing to bear for the sake of both of our futures. Likewise, my sister agrees that we should not go public or be martyrs for a cause, despite how strongly we both feel about each other and the general injustice that keeps our relationship hidden. Despite this, however, we're considering telling our parents the truth after she finishes college, assuming she still wants to stay together after that time. She informs me that she'll stay with me forever. I can't get rid of her that easy, and I shouldn't question her decisions just because she's younger than I am. And they haven't found out by then. Of course, as that time grows closer, we may need to change the plan as needed. Oh, one last largely unrelated point. Thanks in no small part to my tutelage and consequent risk of life and limb, my sister is now in possession of a valid driver's license. I'm very proud of her. Our parents have generously offered her half the cost on a reasonably priced vehicle of her choice, and I'll help her as well. She's been somewhat lax in choosing a car, though. She's openly admitted she prefers having a chauffeur. In response to, I presume, someone asking about Valentine's Day, this is sometimes later, but this is the last update we have in the story. So, Oral Hygiene Bro said, my apologies about that. While our Valentine's Day was special for both of us, work and school proved a bit too overwhelming for me to update you properly. That, and I would rather not mention our more intimate moments. She is in high school and I'm preparing to finish graduate school. Yes, that is possible. Okay, so this is a response to multiple questions. We don't have the questions, but we have the answers. Yes, she is in high school and I'm preparing to finish graduate school. Yes, that is possible. It's also the reason we've been planning to wait until she finishes her education. The backlash, should they strongly disapprove, would be easier to cope with once we both have our degrees. But we do love our parents. I'm not sure they'll be able to accept our decisions, but we like to think they might. To be honest, I suspect the toothbrushing was merely a catalyst for these events. We both confessed to having an attraction to the other prior to that single night. That said, I most certainly never expected this, and might as well have never pursued anything more than simple arrangements already in place had it not been for A's suggestion. I reiterate my thanks to you. No, my sister and I both agreed that shame has no place in what we feel for each other. We don't feel guilty for our happiness. I will say that due to my sister's choices, we had a minor pregnancy scare after Valentine's Day. Though I admit my own fault in that situation as well, but I'd rather not discuss the details. I seriously doubt my father would kill me for what I've done. While my parents are not the most liberal people on the planet, they can be surprisingly understanding when it comes to my sister's decisions. That said, we're still not sure if we'll actually tell them, just considering it. This is possible, but my sister feels very strongly about us attending. As I mentioned, it's very unlikely that many people will know me, but those we're most likely to meet and talk to are ones who will recognize me. We just need to play it by ear. While I'm not advocating my relationship with my sister for anyone else, I do advocate for finding someone you truly love and can spend your days with. For me, I find my happiness with my sister, and she finds hers with me. While I'm aware that incest is illegal in several European nations, France and the Netherlands off the top of my head, I doubt it is legal where I live. Wednesday, March 24th. Oral Hygiene Brother here. That is, the genuine Oral Hygiene Brother. I have nothing to report. And that is the end of the greatest story ever told, Oral Hygiene Brother. It gets a little crazy sometimes, but that is it. There's no further updates. What happens going forward, truly, no one knows. I wish there was an update to this story, but I suppose that is a fine enough place to end it off. You know, literally a prom night dance between brother and sister. As I said, a structure very similar to a lot of romance anime out there. I can think of while they didn't have a prom, I can think of Kaguya off the top of my head, following similar beats, you know. You have fun at Valentine's Day, the Christmas special, the ending on a serious cultural celebration. I think in Kaguya they had a culture festival. That'd be like the closest analog I can imagine. But in addition, them having to hide their romance is, though an underexplored aspect of the story, something I find quite enjoyable throughout. So, to end this off, I hope you all have enjoyed the story that is Oral Hygiene Brother. It is one of my favorite stories online. I like reading through it every now and again to just to, like, you know, see how my thoughts and feelings have changed about it. In terms of, like, fictional works, which I'm presuming this is fictional because, like, there's no further updates, and the story structure is, like, too serendipitous to be true. Like, there's too many things in this story that just are aping the animes that are mentioned within the story itself, at least in my opinion. If you don't agree, please do leave your reasons in the comments. But quite the story, quite the tale. I'm not going to speak on the morality of marrying your sister. I think you all know, you probably shouldn't do that. Crazy as it sounds, you probably shouldn't marry your own sister. That said, the story is still quite an enjoyable read. The way it dives into taboo subject material, how it shows off the love between these two, you know, problematic age gap aside. You know, it's quite the tale. When I'm picturing this story in my head, I am literally just picturing anime characters. I want a series made of this, you know what I mean? Like a quick little direct-to-DVD OVA or some shit. That would be Kino. But yeah, reading that in one straight shot has totally wiped me the out. You know, that story was a lot longer than I remembered it being. Of course, I'll have the comments scrolling on screen, like the archived replies we have to the story. Mainly it's just the initial post from October 2009, but the comments are obviously quite divisive. Some range on taking the story totally seriously, some, you know, obviously see that it's probably fiction, considering it's basically aping Nisemonogatari and then Chobits for most of it. There's people saying, what is wrong with you? There's people spamming W's in appreciation for it. You know, you have people who truly appreciate the story, whether it be fiction or not, and Ain't that kind of beautiful? Ain't that kind of beautiful? If you want more stories like this in the future, I will go sleuthing for them, but this is just one I've known about for a long time, and I wanted to share with all of you. I hope your lives were enriched after this monumental story. I certainly had a lot of fun rereading it for this. Hello, Sleepy from the future here after editing. I wanted to give more points on this story before I let you go, because I was very tired during the ending of that recording session and was not able to fully put my thoughts out there on this story. So, first of all, I constantly alluded to the fact that this story is more than likely fake because of the animes it's aping throughout, but let's just look at other elements of it. This is a dude who is living on his own with his sister. He's not working a job, and sure, it might be possible if he's living in a college dorm or something, but generally that setup would require you have a roommate and you not live with your sister. I don't know, maybe his parents are loaded and are funding their living situation, but it just doesn't add up. Also, there's no, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it was earlier in the story and I'm just not remembering, there's no real reason cited for why the sister is living with him in the first place. It's just kind of there, not established for funsies as like, yep, this is what's happening. Because, when I was initially reading this, I thought it was, they were living with their parents and they were slinking off and doing this in the dead of night. But no, just conveniently they're living together, which is a little sussy. And then the sister in this story is just such a character. You know what I mean? Like, she always says the right things. She always, magically does what's ever most convenient for the plot. She's more of a character than a person in the way she's written to me, so that points towards this definitely being a fake story. But that said, that doesn't make it bad. In fact, I would argue it makes it a work of literary prowess. It certainly isn't the most life-changing thing in the world. It isn't a novel you read. It's no Agatha Christie. It's no Wittgenstein, but it's a pretty good read. Of all the things I've read online throughout these stories, I think the choice in format was good. The anonymous message board as a way to vent your relationship with your sister. That's a good setup for a story. That is using your environment in your storytelling, and I always appreciate that stuff. You get the same thing with anonymous accounts on Reddit, though Reddit would not allow stories like this because they're too spicy. Additionally, the comments to this, responding to it, obviously call it out as fake, call it on its bullshit, many points throughout. The whole Bakemonogatari not having a dub, it's definitely a fake story, but that doesn't make it any less interesting. It's always fascinating to me to see where people's minds go when they're telling stories like this, when they're fabricating them, because these stories of incest and taboo and other such things always come from a place of deep, entrenched, morbid curiosity within the human psyche. To take this outlandish concept, to take this almost thing we never talk about in society and actually sit down, write it out, and explore it in a context of it being real, in a context of everything surrounding the story. Obviously, that's what context is, but you get what I mean. It enables a writer and the audience to kind of play with it a little bit, see oh, I guess this is what it would be like in an idealized, not an idealized, but in that scenario. I guess this is what it would be like. And, it helps you play it out in your head. And it's fun. It's fun. I get a lot out of weird, fictional, esoteric stories like this. This is, to me, akin to an Orihimo set in America. You can obviously get a lot from Orihimo, a lot of the same vibes from Orihimo, but there's something about this being set in America during the Obama administration, to really throw it back, that, it just hits a little different. It's that cultural osmosis that you feel throughout reading that makes it hit different than anime, but still, it's distinctly still anime. And I can appreciate that. I try to do the same in my own writings whenever I do pick up that pen and start putting them down, you know? It's a fun process, is what I'm getting at. And I respect the author, whoever they may be, for putting this to paper. I do have to wonder if there's any other works of fiction this author has written. Probably not in an anonymous form, probably taking credit for it somewhere, because I would like to know who wrote this and, like, get into why they put this to pen, right? Because I think it's very fascinating. I totally forgot my train of thought. I just heard something crazy out my window. So we're not going to think about that, and I'm just going to continue rambling. Yeah, this shit's fascinating. I love stories like this. They are infinitely fun to me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting at, but totally lost my train of thought. I wonder if the author of this story has written anything else in any other online forms, because I feel like this writing style would stick out like a sore thumb. And if this is the only story this author has written, good for them. But if it's not, I would like to get into the author's brain, kind of like talk with them and ask why and where this story came from, you know? It's very interesting to read and just follow along with. It does kind of fall down the pothole of I want to use big words because, you know, I want to sound professional, sound very cool in my writing, for lack of a better way to put it. Like, what was the one word I struggled to pronounce in the middle? Like, recessant? Recessant? I don't remember what it was. There's a word in the middle and various words throughout that I was like, okay, calm down, big dog. This story ain't that serious. You don't need to pull out those $5 words like that. That was another thing that really stuck out to me, because, like, he uses these words and this prose in, like, such a dramatic way to truly set the scene. And on one hand, I can appreciate that, but on the other hand, it kind of takes away from the authenticity. All in all, though, Oral Hygiene, Brother is a pretty interesting story, and like Past Me said, I hope you all enjoyed it thoroughly, as I have. I like to go back to the story sometimes, and, you know, if you're interested in hearing any other stories like this in the future, let me know. It's fun to read them. Not as much fun to sit and audio edit for an entire day, but, you know, it is fun to read them. Like, subscribe, and do all the other YouTube shit. Hit the bell. I've heard people aren't getting my videos in their sub boxes for whatever reason, so please make sure to hit that. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Support me on Patreon, by the way. This video's been up there for at least a week as of when I'm recording this, because I'm about to no life and edit this entire thing tonight. I'm not going to do anything crazy. As you're going to see, it's going to be a lot of video game footage. But nevertheless, I hope you all enjoyed. Have a wonderful night. Take care. Jama.